Hi there. Thank you for joining today. Everybody watching, I'm so glad you've joined. This is the next episode in Unleash the Joy, where humans and dogs find harmony. Today, I am so excited to have Kate Brown. She is just an amazing lady. I can't wait for you to learn more about her. She's a coach, a spiritual guide, and a certified aroma therapist. And she also specializes in healing touch for animals. So, of course, I felt a huge connection. As soon as we started talking, I'm like, oh, I've got to meet this lady. And I am so happy to have you here so that we can share more about what we get to do to help there be harmony between us and our dogs. And it's such a needed area for help. So thank you, Kate, for being here today.
Well, thank you so much, Jodie. I'm so excited to be here and talk with you and talk with your people. And because it's, as we were talking before we got started, that it really is all about the animals. And what we do is really all about our animals and how we can make a better life for them and improve their quality of life, help them to have a life of purpose, and whatever that might be. Because being a good companion is a great purpose, like for a dog or a cat, often. And how do we do that? How do we make sure? Oh, and look, your dogs are jumping right in to agree with that, right? And my dog was like, "Hey, where's that dog noise coming from?" So I love that we really did share that bond immediately, that how important it is for both of us that our animals and everybody's animals that we can help take care of are taken care of in the best way possible.
Yes, it's so awesome and special to be able to share the ways that we can change life with our dogs. I thank you, Kate, um, so much for joining. I would really like to know. I love learning about how you got into this, how you got into this experience of helping dogs and realizing, that there's another level other than training, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about emotional and relationships and feelings and making such a difference in dogs' lives and our lives with them.
Right.
And I'm dying to hear what your story is, how you got into this.
And has really been what has happened to me so much in my life is that I learned from my animals. So I became an aromatherapist because we had a horse who was having some issues, and we were going to do some steroid shots and those sort of things because that's what our traditional vet recommended. And somebody suggested that we might try some essential oils and chiropractic on the horse. A, I didn't know even what essential oils were, and B, I didn't realize you could chiropractic a horse at that time. So I was like, just like, well, why wouldn't we try that? Right? We knew that there were side effects to what we were going to do, and potentially it might not work because all it was going to do is numb things. It wasn't going to fix anything. And so we thought,
Temporary.
yeah, huh?
It's just temporary.
Yeah, so it's just a temporary fix, where, probably the horse was going to end up, with a much shortened. She was a competition horse that my husband, he used to do team penning and ranch sorting and that sort of thing. And she was a good horse in the arena. And so, but not so much out, which I'll tell you that in a minute. So we thought, what the heck? We're going to try this. So I have to say, when I first started using essential oils, I was like, oh my gosh, these are like stinky water. I didn't think they smelled really good. We used some lavender and it was like, this is not what lavender smells like, because I really had no idea what real lavender smelled like. I only knew what scented, chemically synthetic lavender, smelled like, that was in all of these products that we would use in our homes. And so we started using the essential oils, and almost before, we used those for about a week before we went for the chiropractic treatment. And almost before we got there, she was probably 90% better just from using these essential oils. But
Wow.
that really wasn't the biggest. So we totally resolved that issue, made it go away completely. Um, so she didn't have an ongoing chronic issue. But that really wasn't where my big aha was with this. The big aha that came was she had always been a difficult horse. Um, she didn't get along with the other horses. We had at that time about 7 or 8 horses. She didn't get along with any of the other horses. There was always fighting going on. We were constantly having to keep her apart. She would not let my husband even get near her, even though he had never done anything, mean to her, but she would never let him get close to her. I'd always have to go out and catch her. And it was just always, and even like I struggled to bond with her, which had never happened with any animal in my life. I'd always bonded easily with animals. And when we started using the essential oils, all of a sudden, she's out there in the herd with all the rest of the horses and eating and getting along, and there was no fighting. And all of a sudden my husband's like, I went out and caught Scarlet. I can't believe it. And when we would work with her, she would stand there nicely. She was nice to us. There was no kind of, before she would thrash at us or maybe even try to kick or bite. And like none of that was going on anymore. And we were just like, wow. It has to be the oils, right? Because that's the only thing that we shifted. At first, we were like, well, because she's not in pain anymore. But it was more than that, because she hadn't been in pain for the entire time we had her, but her behavior had been like that the entire time we had her. And so it was just such like a light bulb that went out. And so I started using essential oils with our other horses and brought them in the house and started using with the dogs. And honest to gosh, it was a year before I bought an oil to use for me. Because I always take better care of my animals than I did myself. But they taught me that this could help me too, and it could, as well as helping them. And now I know I was using them on me in using them on them. But at that point, I didn't get the whole olfactory that, what was going on, and that by putting them on my hands, they were getting in my body, it just wasn't a way that I thought about things back, 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's changed a lot, right? Like we've learned a lot.
Yeah. So I decided, at the time, and I will tell on myself, at the time I had had depression and social anxiety since I was a child. Really kind of from the time I remember feeling really awkward and uncomfortable and not knowing what to say and blushing when I talked to people and all of that. And so, that was going on for me at the same time. That I started to use these oils. And I was on 7 different medications for social anxiety and depression, and had been for years, on a whole rotating cocktail of drugs. And it felt like things were getting worse for me. And I kind of didn't know what to do. And I started to hear this little voice that said, if you don't do something, you're not going to be here much longer. And I tried to ignore it and push it down. Because at that point in my life, I did not feel real spiritually connected. I wasn't listening to my inner voice. I wasn't paying attention even to what my animals were. I'd always felt like they kind of talked to me, and, I knew what was going on with them. And I even felt like that had gotten numb and covered up for me. And so I went to a Tony Robbins seminar. And I came home and I made the decision to get off of my medication. And I started using essential oils, and I started doing meditations. I started eating better, and I started giving myself clearing the way instead of numbing my way through life. So I cleared those blockages. I cleared those traumas so that I had an opportunity to be able to know what was going on inside me, what I was thinking, what I was feeling. I started hearing, I started feeling connected spiritually, connected with my animals again, with that. So one of the ways I had always dealt with my social anxiety is that I would, read or learn things. So I went to an aromatherapy class, with no intention of ever getting certified, ever doing anything except learning more about them so that I knew what I was talking about when I talked about essential oils. And it was a series of 3 weekend classes. And in the second class, a woman stood up and talked about Healing Touch for Animals. And she was the founder of Healing Touch for Animals, Carol Comator, and found out that there was going to be a level 1 Healing Touch for Animals class in the Chicagoland area, which is where I live, coming up like in a couple of months. And so I thought, well, I have to do that, right? They use oils. We had started to learn this energy work in our aromatherapy classes. I'm like, well, this has to even be better that we're going to do it with animals rather than with than with people. So I got really excited about that. And I ended up becoming a certified clinical aromatherapist. I finished the classes. I did the homework. I took my tests, did my, case studies, and became a certified clinical aromatherapist. And then I also went on to become a certified Healing Touch for Animals practitioner. And since then, I've done a whole bunch of other classes too that, doing Healing Touch for people. And I've done some Reiki classes, and I've done some, or not Reiki, reflexology classes. And I'm a certified crystal healer for people and for animals. So lots of different, modalities to put it together. And for me, I've always said that, aromatherapy, essential oils are always my foundation. They're my catalyst. They're my go-to first. And even if sometimes I don't use them, it's always where I start. And so I find that that's with my animals too, that's always where I start with that, because they can be so helpful. And we've seen that I could tell stories for the rest of the hour about what I've seen from working with Healing Touch for Animals and with essential oils, and how powerful that is in the healing process that our animals have. And even a lot of times, and I know, Jodie, you do a ton of training, and we can talk about how we could incorporate that. But a lot of times, that trauma that is being held in the body, that's being held in the energy field, that surrounds all of us. We're all electromagnetic beings, right? And so we hold that out there. And sometimes it's easier to train our animals when we've released that sort of thing, right? And we see them be able.
I feel like I train humans, not dogs.
Yeah, well, exactly.
I wish I didn't have the word training in my business, because I have such a different feeling and understanding of what I'm expecting
Right.
from dogs. And it's what a great thing that I personally have had some very good experiences with a few essential oils, and realizing how much it can change animals and put that calmness in and give them, so many animals are just on this high stress energy level. They're like on this radar alert all the time about the whole world around them. And we can only imagine, and in reality, if you take what I do towards humans, they're going through this stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But we get to talk, we get to think, we have this rationality stuff to help us, to maybe, make it better. We have these choices, right? To make, even meditation and things to help us. But dogs don't have that, and animals don't have that. They just have this instincts that they should be alert for something, and they should be aware, and it's all about safety. It's all about safety, and survival. And creating environments where they don't feel that, and letting them actually just get into to living and being themselves. It's such a wonderful thing. And I've seen it. I've seen a little bit of oils I've used. I've had amazing results. And you mentioned it already. Lavender is one of my favorites.
Lavender is such a universal oil, because it works on so many different levels and so many different areas, and it has that ability. We like to think about lavender as an adaptogen, meaning that it has that ability to bring you into balance regardless of where you're at. And that's true for our animals, and it's true for humans, is that it really does, sometimes when we're too anxious, it helps to bring things down. And when we're too low, it helps to bring things up, so that we're in that space of of balance. And what I've learned now that I didn't know when I started using essential oils with our horse Scarlet was that that essential oils have that ability, and energy work and what you do, Jodie, has that ability to bring things to that place where we're in a place, our animals are in a place where we can self-heal. It's just amazing what can happen when we're in balance, when we're in alignment, when we're grounded and centered and connected.
Think about the word equilibrium.
Yeah.
Right. Homeostasis.
Homeostasis. Right? That's a word I use a lot. Yeah.
We're looking for that word homeostasis, like that. We all are. Every living being is.
Right.
Looking for that. And when we can give that, it's truly amazing. It's a gift. It's probably one of the best things to ever experience in life, when you know that you made that difference, right? That the dog doesn't need to be, or anybody, don't need to be alert onto everything, that it's okay right now. We get to live in the now and enjoy the moment, and you're safe, right? And then adding the being comfortable in the environment and being out there, being not afraid to go out there and try things and to do things. And that's my experience really with the lavender that I worked with dogs. I used to, it was a natural product I got from a friend, and it was a lavender spray, calming spray. And I just know I used to put it on myself when I went to go see, especially a dog, almost any new dog at the time, but especially, like if there was some sort of aggression or whatever, I just found it created a calmness. I don't know for sure how much they like it. Like if I actually just spray it, I don't know how much they like it, but I know it makes a difference.
So when I work with dogs, and can sometimes be tricky to work with scents, because they are so scent sensitive. I mean, most dogs have at least 5,000 times the amount of scent receptors that like a human being has. So when we think about that, if we put a drop of, just one drop of lavender in our palms and put it up by our nose, how strong that is. And this is what I see people do all the time. They do that and then shove those hand right up into their dog's nose, or start petting it all over their head and face and ears. And it's overwhelming for our animals, when our dogs in particular, to do that. Like horses take oil so much better because their scent receptors are similar to humans. So if we find it acceptable, a lot of times a horse will. And so they will often gravitate toward them, where we see like some of our, our dogs in particular, when we talk about them, that we need to be more careful about how we're working with them. That oftentimes, like I will sometimes just take a bottle of oil and just crack it and not even open it all the way. And, just see if you'll notice that they'll start paying attention to what's going on, because it's around, especially when they're brand new to it. Now, like my dog here that you saw maybe in the background, he has grown up with oils. He's 7 years old. He came into this house. He was 12 or 13 weeks. He's been around oils ever since he was a puppy, but we introduced them slowly, and one of my favorite ways to work with essential oils with our animals, or with our dogs, is, with a water-based diffuser. I love that. It's so simple. It's so easy. And we're talking about parts per billion in our air. So, and we can even, tamp it down more by only maybe putting 5 or 6 drops in our diffuser, versus whereas for a human, we might do 12 or 15 or something in order to get that, so we can smell it more. But it's a great way to introduce our animals, and then making sure they're allowed to leave the area if that's what they want to do. But it's safe, even for cats, it's safe to be able to do that and allow them to come back and forth. And here's what I have found in my personal experience with my clients and in my own home, is that after a short time, a lot of times where we see our animals laying in our house is right by the diffuser. Like I have a diffuser in my other room where it's about maybe 2 feet off of the floor. And my dogs have always come and laid right there next to the diffuser with that. So that
tells you a lot.
It does. Um, and then another thing that I really like to use with them that I just find to be such a simple, easy, I should have grabbed one that wasn't open, but are these smell sticks. So you can buy these on Amazon and all kinds of places. And it's, it's got a little cover that screws on there, and it's got a little hole. I don't know if you can really see that, but there's a little hole in the end, and this cap pops off, and there's a cotton wick in there. Um, and you can put a few drops of oil on there. And this one is, oh gosh, this is from over a year ago. It had some eucalyptus in it, and I can still smell it, but it's not overwhelming, like even if I put a drop of oil in my hand. So I like to say that when we start using essential oils with our animals, either just cracking the top or using a tool like this, and we might be 2 or 3 feet away, and then see how the animal, our dog, responds to that before we just start slathering them in it or shoving that in their nose or shoving that in their face. We love to, in Healing Touch for Animals, when we talk about, because we use oils in that class, and what we talk about there is that less is more. Sometimes a little bit becomes a force amplifier for the other things that we're doing that are energetically useful for our animals and energetically purposeful for our animals. And so when we add those together, all of a sudden both of those things work better. And if we overwhelm the animal with oils, now they can't get past that to be able to even use, find out what's going on with the other things that we might be, doing to try to help them. So we always want to go with that less is more approach. Or even if you don't have a smell stick, placing a drop in your hands and rubbing it, and even just, kind of letting them air out a little bit so it's less. And then start 2 or 3 or 4 feet away and see if they'll come to you with something like that, as opposed to pushing it on them. And even when I love to say that when you put your essential oils on your dog, it's like having a moving diffuser in the house. Because they walk around and, but I always use my oils behind, like, the collar back.
Okay.
And while sometimes there's something going on farther up on the body that we need to use them, always look at very diluted if you're going to do that, and, very gently, and, making sure that they're okay with it before you just start putting it on. Because I love to use it for, like, if dogs have ear infections or gunky stuff in their ears, wiping them out with some essential oils can be a very powerful way to work with that. But you want, then I put a drop on a cotton pad, let it sit for a few minutes, and then, wipe out the ear, so that it's very diluted and very gentle. And I find, as with everything, if we can be proactive, so we have a dog that is, has some ear infection issues. First of all, we can go back into food and, what do we need to be doing to eliminate that, but that doesn't mean, even if you switch food and get them on probiotics and enzymes that are going to help that, we often say, I'm not a big food person. You and I kind of talked about that, but I know a little bit. And, we often look at that for every, year that an animal has been being fed biologically inappropriate, that it takes usually somewhere between 1 to 3 months per year in order to resolve that. So you've got a 7-year-old dog that's been fed biologically inappropriate for food, that we're looking potentially at close to 2 years before that would completely be resolved and out of their body. And, if we move them to the right thing, and oftentimes that takes a little trial and error too, right? That we've got to figure out what is right for them and what isn't. So in the meantime, can we, hi, little one.
He's scratching me, sorry.
No. Is he a skipper poop?
He's Pomeranian.
Oh, Pomeranian.
He was taken to the vet for aggression.
Ah, Yeah,
And
you look aggressive.
he's ferocious. Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you say that about as soon as you said, like, just cracking the lid,
Hmm.
like, that's what I see. That's what I understand how super sensitive they are. I'm
Yeah.
very fascinated with dogs' olfactory systems, and even the fact that they can pick things out, right? Like, to be able to realize, and a lot of it's genetics. Like, this scent has a meaning, right? Like, it's got a meaning in their genetics, but it's so interesting. And I love talking about, like, you to dilute them, and it's really it's such a wonderful thing to be able to do something as simply as adding a little bit of a smell, because we know so much of their whole mind is focused on their scent,
Right.
and just being able to help that can put their mind in such a completely different place, right? Just with a scent. What do you think? Yeah, well, he says if
And
they're a bird or a squirrel.
and both for people and for our animals, when we smell, anything, it doesn't matter that it's an essential oil or not, but when we smell anything, it goes directly into the nose. It hits the nerves that hang down there and goes into the olfactory bulb and goes directly into the emotional or the limbic system of the brain. And in fact, there's some studies that suggest that every memory it can be trauma, but it can also be good memories, can be stored in our brain with a scent. And when we get that right scent together, that what we get is this vivid flash of remembering exactly what happened during that period of time. And so it's really interesting to kind of understand that essential oils work with the emotional center of the brain, and they do a lot of things physically. um, they're very, very powerful physically, but it's that emotional piece, it's the mental piece, it's the for, and even with what you do, where we want our dogs to have good recall, and we want them to behave nicely in front of people, and those sort of things, that that focus that sometimes is needed while we're teaching them to do that and getting them to really um, for that to really be a part of them, that they get that every time that's what's happening. And there's essential oils that are so powerful to work with focus and those sort of things.
Well, and you've definitely, just making me think about it. So a lot of what I try and do and help people understand is changing dogs' association, right? Their association with the world, the association with the situation or an experience when things are happening, and putting these scents in offer an opportunity. Like, when I smell this stuff, oh, it's always a good experience. Like, you're changing their association. You can actually utilize. I can see right away. I now talking about. I can see ways that that it can be utilized to help a dog when the dog is usually really upset about something over there. Just a little bit, right? Open the jar. I love that idea. It's so strong scented. Just putting a bit of something in the air, the good oils, could change their mind when you're working on, telling them that that's okay over there, right? Like, you can't ignore what's going on in their world, but we get to help them change how they feel about it, emotions,
Mhm.
right? And change their association. And the oils are a huge opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and
Like, huge.
I've gone to so many like rally classes and agility classes and things like that, and I know you do that too. But just taking a drop of oil in my hand and brushing it down my pant leg, when it's something that I know that my dog responds to, and now guess where they pay attention? They
They're
pay
right
attention
with
to me instead of all of um, you know, the the sensory input that is all around them, the other dogs and the equipment and the trainer and the noise and all of that. All of a sudden, the scent overrides all of that. And it's like, oh, I like lavender. I smell lavender on on you. It just makes that connection, that bond with me even stronger.
Yeah, and you take advantage of it, right? You're spending the time with them, and you make it a really good experience. The next time you have that scent on you, the dog is suddenly like, oh, this is fun. I like this, right? It's not stressful. It's. I actually just really love this whole concept of talking about it this way. How much
Yeah.
I think I've done that. Like I think I've done exactly what we're talking about without realizing it on the level that I think that we're talking. Like I think I've done it. I did it with Herbie. I would give him a spray because I tried a
Right.
few different things because when we went into the building, as soon as we entered the building for class, he would just be crazy. He's just excited,
Mhm.
super excited. And I did a couple things, a couple different things, and one of them was lavender, which had just changed that experience of walking into the building, right? And it worked. Like he became a very and I only have sometimes when there's a real problem, you only have to do things successfully once.
Right.
And even if the smell isn't necessarily present the next time, they've already had that good experience and association with
Yeah.
that situation. And it's really honestly, I would swear by it that it's proof that it could work. This one I've done tons of work with. Um,
Yeah.
and
Well,
have done lots of
in
stuff.
healing touch for animals, we talk about that there's really a difference in how dogs internalize and animals in general internalize um, things versus people. So as people, we often like to hang on to things, right? You said before, well, it's hard for animals because they can't talk, they can't rationalize it, they can't think through it, and those sort of things. Well, you're right, animals don't do that because their field is in one layer versus ours, which is in multiple layers. And so we like to let things go a layer at a time or get things stuck out there. And so we think they're done, and yet it comes back to us. And I think anybody who's ever been to therapy or thought that they had worked through a situation and then gotten triggered again, like went, oh my gosh, I thought I was done with this, right? And with our animals, they don't hang on to things the same way. They tend to and we even see it with our dogs a lot of times when they shake, they will shake things off. Sometimes when something happens and
I love the shake off.
we, on the other hand, oftentimes hold on to that for them and sometimes put it on them because we were scared by whatever situation happened. They got away and ran out, in front of a car and everything ended up being okay, but we're really upset by it. And so we hold on to that. Or in cases like where an animal's come from a difficult situation, an abusive situation, where we know that they haven't been treated well. And, oftentimes that breaks our heart, when we think about that. But even as the animal starts to heal and starts to get better, we hang on to that story, don't we? We tell everybody that story. Oh, you can't believe what he's been through, and blah 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 blah. And sometimes we use it to excuse their behavior, and but sometimes the dogs would actually heal if we would just quit hanging on to that story and let that go. So in healing touch for animals and in working with our oils, that's part of what we do. Is you said to me earlier, or maybe on the call, that you said that you often are about teaching the people, not always just teaching the dog. And that's what we have to start to get our people to recognize too, is that you can't hang on to the story for them because you're keeping it in their energy too. And because we know, and we probably are all aware of this, if you're an animal person and you even have a little bit of inkling of what energy or electromagnetic fields are, our biofields are, is that as a person, ours are usually around our fingertip. If we put our fingers out and think about that surrounding us 360 degrees, that's around where most of us have an energetic field. Our dogs, like my little dog who's back here, he's filling my whole space. Your little dog that's there, he's filling the whole space. We are always in their energy. They aren't always in ours. But if they live with us in our home, we are in their energy. And in our Healing Touch for Animals class on Sundays, we always do horse day. And in our level 1 class, one of the first things we do on Sunday morning is we put a horse in the middle of a big arena and have everybody move back as far as they can, and then start to walk in until they feel the energy. And oftentimes they maybe take a step or step and a half before they feel that. And it might be 50, 100, 150 feet out away from the horse. Now, dogs are not quite that big, but they're very large.
I think dogs can be even bigger, right? Like they're just, it
Sometimes,
depends on, well, it depends on, you know, because I mean, if you think about for dogs, if you think about what they hear, they're definitely hearing things way past what we do.
right.
And same with scent. They're hearing. I love the topics of energy fields because I do think like it's a very very important, and I think it's here. Is they are very aware. I think that horses are. It's very interesting already. A few things that you said about the horses, what to do with the scent. I never thought about it. Makes so much sense, but I do think dogs have a much, depending on the breed, some have a much bigger energy field, and they're just. I think that their definition of energy field would be very different than our definition of an energy field. But just to start with, right?
Yeah. So my little dog here, he likes to sit on the back of the couch, and this is my office, but in our living room. And my husband, a few nights a week, works until like 7 o'clock, so he's not usually getting home until about 7:30. And he will sit there, and I can't even see his vehicle on the road coming up to our house. And all of a sudden he jumps off the couch, runs to the back door, and is standing there waiting for him before he ever even pulls in our driveway. Because he knows when he's a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile down the road, that he's interacting with that. And versus, I'm visually seeing him, and I wouldn't know he was in the house if I didn't hear him or see him until he was a few feet away from me. Right.
Yeah.
But my dog knows when he's a mile from the back door. So it's just interesting to see how they understand their territory. Dogs have a very, it's one of the things a lot of times I talk about, and maybe you do too, is, teaching your dog where their boundaries are. So if you have, if you have a big yard, a small yard, whatever that is that taking them around and making sure they understand where their boundaries are, and, and to be, saying this, here is ours. And, you're responsible for this. If you want them to, give you a bark when, like somebody pulled in our driveway to drop off a package. And, so he, gave it a little bark and went for a run. And then they pulled out and he came back to his spot. And so we see that, where do they belong? And especially animals who have been passed from home to home. Or maybe have been in and out of shelters or rescue or foster situations where they have this concern. Do they belong? Is this really where they get to stay? Is this their forever home? And so that's a lot of times when we start working with our essential oils, when we work with, modalities like what you do, Jodie, when we do healing touch for animals, how we see our animals respond to that. When we can start to energetically connect with them, and so that they see, to me, when animals talk to us, we hear it in words, but they hear it in energy. So it's, when we create an energy picture for them that says, this is your home. Or sometimes when we see that when, maybe the people have to move and the dog stays with them, but then they get all kind of discombobulated because it's like, but this isn't my home. And so it's like, we have to explain, yes, we're all going to live here. This now is your home, but it's also our home. So, we have to kind of create those energy pictures. And I'm sure you probably work with this, but, we do some things in healing touch for animals. And when you do this with an essential oil, it makes it even more powerful, where we might create a script where we're talking with them about not what necessarily we don't want them to do, but what do we want them to do? And even, I tell people that all the time, like, you have a dog that jumps, you can't say quit jumping, because energetically all they see is jumping, Yeah. So, but when we say something like, and you might have a phrase that you like to use, but let's keep our paws on the ground,
Yeah. 4 on the
our
floor,
feet on the floor, 4 on the floor, right? All of those
or
things.
praise it, right? Just yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then-
it's switching from the negative to the positive and giving them the direction they're looking
Right.
for.
And my last corgi that I had, he got into a bad habit where he started licking the furniture. He never licked himself, so we didn't have hot spots or anything like that. But he would started licking. He'd lick the rug, he licked the couch, he licked a chair, and then there'd be these wet spots all over the house. And so I had to think about that for a while, right? Like, what do I say to him? And so what I came up with is keep your tongue in your mouth. And like I would, if I catch him doing it, I'd say to him, keep your tongue in your mouth. And he'd look at me, he'd do one more lick because he was a corgi, and then he would stop. And it got to the point where he didn't even do it anymore, right? Um, but us
That's
being consistent, us telling them, our animals, what we want, and especially when we're scared or annoyed or something, our tendency is to yell what we don't want, right? Like,
yeah.
or
What you
when
don't
we
like
start
sticks out.
screaming at them, get away from there. Like that
Yeah,
is not
the
helpful.
negative, right? The
Right.
negative,
But
and
saying
and
something like stop, come here, right? And so we can energetically, and we talk about that, creating scripts for behavioral issues, or creating scripts so that they understand that we're moving from this house to that house. Um,
yeah,
or I've even had worked with animals where the owner has passed on, and to create a script with the and working with the energy for them to be able to understand what's going on and why they're not there, why that person's not there anymore, because a lot of times it doesn't. If the dog sees it, I truly believe they understand it. When they don't see it, when they don't aren't there when it happens, all they
yeah,
know is their person went away, right? And often that is what happened. They go to the hospital, go to
absolutely.
the skill care facility, whatever that might be. They're just gone and they don't know why.
And then
Um,
they're feeling all the energy of everybody around them too.
all that stress, all the emotion, all the anxiety, all the
And
grief.
nobody thinks to stop and help them and to realize that they need some help too, and support through a time like that.
Yeah.
I just recently had someone contact me about that, and they never really got back to me, but I really keep thinking about it, how difficult it is. I've been with people when we've had to put down animals and stuff, and having the animals say goodbye, right? Like giving them an opportunity to see that they've passed. That's a huge part too. Like people don't realize how much dogs really need help and direction and support when they're going through something like that. And just like you and I, there's a grieving process.
Absolutely. There's a grieving process. And I find essential oils to be so powerful to help me and to help the animal with the grieving process. And in the less than a year now, we've lost our older horse and we lost our older dog. And it was devastating for all of us. But I made sure that, our younger dog was there for both events, first of all, and that I did healing touch and I did, oils that were good for grief. My favorite, I'll just share my favorite grief blend. I like to put together frankincense, myrrh, and rose. So I will take like a little roller bottle like this, and I'll put 10 drops of frankincense, 10 drops of myrrh, and 1 drop of rose essential oil, mix them together, and then you fill it up the rest of the way with your carrier oil. And then you can just place a little, you can put a little bit here on your wrist and be able to smell that, or put it directly on your heart, down on your sternum, on your heart area. With that, and you can see, I don't know if you noticed, but when I opened an oil, he looked up, he looked over, what's going on? I can smell that. Whereas a person might not smell that across the place. And you can do that same thing with our animals, not on their pads, but behind the big pad. you can put a little drop of, little bit of oil there. And one of the things that you
I've
can
also
do,
seen like in here a
yes,
little bit,
and
maybe.
or here on the chest where there, where it would be.
Chest is one of my favorite places for stress relieving for dogs. I find this rubbing the chest is a huge, yeah, and as long as you're not confining, right?
Yeah.
Just giving them that, yeah, it's huge, and a little bit of oil I could see would be amazing.
Yeah, and
Okay,
this has got some patchouli in it, so that's why it's dark, but I did that so we could kinda see it. This is 1
Lucy,
drop of oil on my hand, just 1 drop of oil on my hand, so that's how much oil can be in a drop, and usually with the clear oil, you don't even recognize that. But for our animals, one of my favorite ways to apply it when we're gonna do something like that, like behind the paw, on the chest, maybe right there behind that, on the occipital ridge, there can be really nice. But just putting a drop in our hand and then putting your thumb in your hand, we have a whole thumbprint technique in Healing Touch for Animals. But now we just have a little part of a drop of oil on our thumb. We're not even putting a whole drop of oil on there. And then, we can take that, and I'm just going to, because this is an okay oil for me to put here, I'm just going to do it on my chin to see that. But then we can just kind of, do a little clockwise circle. And that works really great. Like I said, underneath, behind, not on the pad, behind the pad, across, we can work it across the occipital ridge there, across the back of the skull, with that. And, that 1 drop of oil, we might put that in several places on the animal, with that. And then maybe when we're done, and we might rub our hands together so we can't really see it on there anymore. And then we might, again, from the neck back, from that collar back, just brush it through. And then what happens is that it wicks in through the hair. It's not like we've got to get it down on the skin, or we have to cut a piece of, hair off it, or it actually wicks through the hair and goes into the body. So they're smelling it and they're getting the advantage of it being on there topically. And that helps so much to support them when they're having issues with grief. And those are things that we did with Hudson, when we lost Gus and Boober, because he had been with them his whole life. He didn't know what that was like not to be with them. We took him out to the barn, in the horse, with the horses a lot. He had always been with Gus. And so we wanted him to understand that they were leaving, and B, to support him afterwards, so that, yes, not that they should have no grief, because it's not like we should have no grief, right? They can be sad, but we can also bring them back into balance, so that, because we see with animals with grief so often that they start acting out, and all of a sudden we have behavioral issues. I know when I lost my dog before this, and we had our older dog, Gus, that I was just talking about, he started like jumping up on the counters and eating things off of the counter. He was half corgi, half border collie. He had a big jump. And it was like, all of a sudden I couldn't leave anything on the counter. I found him with 2 pounds of grass-fed butter one night, that I had sitting on the counter waiting to use for something I was making. And it was like he had never done that before. But he was showing me that he was still in pain, and that he was still having issues. And in that case, I worked with him with energy work, with some oils, got things calmed down, but really felt like, what he needed was another animal. He needed another dog in the house, in order for him to be, to feel like he was a part of that pack again, and had, a friend all the time in the home. So.
did you end up getting another one?
We did. We got him. And
Okay,
I did not feel ready. I will tell you, it was only a couple of months after we had lost, my dog Newton, and it was really hard. I wasn't ready. I was still grieving, and but it was what Gus needed. So I felt like we did that for Gus. And he has been such a little ball of joy from the second we got him, that he lightened the whole house. I mean, the whole household changed, and we started to come. Everybody started to come out of our grief when we got him. So he was the perfect fit for our family. And but I really did. We got another dog because we thought that was what Gus needed, not that it was necessarily, and
You
we've
needed it too.
yeah, yeah, I
know
needed it too. And we've been talking about that because it's been, it'll be a year like in October since we lost Gus. And it's like, are we ready for another dog? Because we've usually had at least 2 dogs. And it's right now, it doesn't feel like he wants one, nor does it feel like we're ready to get one. But we will at some point, that the right time, the right dog, the right opportunity will come. And I always feel like you always get the dog that you need. Um, and that's what they teach us the lessons we're supposed to learn. And he's taught me a lot about being joyful. And he has a few little issues, some things. And even during that, like we knew he had a bad overbite and his jaw was crooked. And, there's a good there's a good thing that we probably were going to have some teeth issue down the road. And, so like a couple of years ago, he ended up having to have all his teeth pulled, because his mouth was always dried out. And he probably had some, the vet said he probably had something going on with his teeth, along with whatever was going on here with his jaw and stuff. And so, I would have thought, oh, that might have changed him. Or even when he was like in pain and he was still happy, and he was still, like, he's just a good, joyful little dog. And he teaches us that even in the hardest time, that it's still okay to feel joy. And I have, it's interesting because for years I've had on my desk a little card that somebody gave me when my mother-in-law passed away quite a while ago. And it says, "I'm working toward a time when everything brings me joy." And it's a quote from Maya Angelou. And I feel like he has so brought that in for me to show us, that even in the hard times that we,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. Even in the hardest time, it's okay to feel joy. And I really believe that.
Yeah, me too.
And we need to, like, it's a healthy thing.
It really is.
It's wow, that's an interesting topic even right now. There's just a lot of not, life is stressful. Things are happening, right? The older we get, the more people we seem to be losing, and our dogs don't live forever, and we know that. But my dogs show me every day that where there's joy in every moment. If you want to bring it in, it's there, and it's so healthy for you.
Yeah. And like this dog here, he loves a ball, and it's like all you have to do is grab a ball, and like just and it's like such a little thing, and it's like I want to live my life more like he lives his life. And so I feel like every day that he brings that joy to me. And we use our oils together. We have a little ritual. We use our essential oils together in the morning and at night. In Healing Touch for Animals, in the very first level, we learn a technique called vibrational grooming, which is just really about energetic, intentional petting of our animals. And the reason that I think there's many reasons it's so important, but every day it creates that bond for you. And so I put a drop of essential oils and start behind the head, and just intentionally pat every part of his body. And it's amazing, like the things that you find out about your animals, where they like to be touched, where they don't like to be touched, how you can, by doing that all of a sudden a dog that maybe didn't like having their feet or paws touched will start letting you do that, because you're not doing anything else, right? You're not trying to clip them. You're not trying to trim them. You're not buzzing the hair off of your jaw, touching it with intention, with love, from your heart. But like one of my dogs, I found a little tumor, and I found that his jaw was all, and he ended up having lymphoma. And it's like, we caught it early, and he lived for a couple of years afterwards, and probably wouldn't have had we waited until it kind of exploded. And corgis have big furry necks. You would have never seen that. And it was kind of up behind his jaw. But because I did that every night, I recognized it almost right away. And when it didn't go away and he wasn't sick and there, he wasn't showing any other symptom, I could go and be like, okay, we need to look at this. And we did an ultrasound and found out, yeah, that was what was going on. But I love doing that, even if you don't ever find anything, and hopefully you don't. But it allows you to bond. It allows them to connect with you, and you are balancing them every single day if you do that with them.
And it gives them a trust with touch. Like
Yeah.
I like to say, like, these hands will never hurt you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Very gentle. I really try and advocate and tell people that all the time. Like, pat your dog all over. See, like you say, see where I don't say anything as much as I'd like to, but learn where they like to be patted. My big thing lately, I've realized and noticed really lots. It's not just recently, but when the dog rolls over, often they're wanting their back scratched.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Most people don't know that,
Yeah.
right? Like they think they want your belly, but actually in reality, they're really wanting their back scratched.
Yeah.
And it's such a good thing to do, like you said, for the feet, right? Like to be able to get them touched and just getting them to know without clippers, without anything that you need, that it's okay to touch. And I'll like talk about it, right? And talk about their feet and their toes and different things. And it can really make a big difference when you put that time and effort into your animal.
Right.
Because when something is going on, it's horrible to just suddenly have to do that. Right? Like all of a sudden they got something on their foot. Now you're grabbing their foot a whole bunch of times. Well, wait a minute. Let's find a different way to already, even before something happens, right? With like you said, with the oils. I want to learn more about the oils. I certainly would be interested. I want to learn more, but I really feel like I should be supporting, like, and providing these type of oils that are good for animals, that can make such a huge difference and the scent. It's so, like you say, just opening a lid. I know. Have you ever watched? I watched. There was a girl lady I was involved with for a while there, and she actually did studies on. They were showing the way smoke and air moves,
Mm-hmm.
right? The way air moves and smoke and stuff. It was like using smoke, but it was showing how air moves.
Sure.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And dogs, just like, they have this incredible system that really is worth us as humans taking advantage of. I mean, I'm huge for scent work. I love doing scent work. I think that when dogs get into the scent work, they can forget all the stress that they're under in the moment and create more, better associations. And I think that something like oils creates even a higher level of that ability.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things that we can do when we work with essential oils is we can ask our animals which oils they prefer. So, we
Oh,
don't want to overwhelm them, but we might get out 3 or 4 or 5 oils that we might know would be good, for that. So if we've got a dog that's very anxious and we want to work with them, we might get out some lavender, we might get out some cedar wood, we might get out some jasmine, and give them a choice and see which of those oils that they gravitate toward. And so, just again, maybe cracking the lid and putting it a few feet away, or, bringing it a little closer and see, do they turn away from it or do they come toward it? And it's amazing to watch an animal do that they will pick oftentimes an oil to be able to work with that. And sometimes the dogs don't love it. I mean, I know my dog Gus did not love essential oils, but he was always so funny that he would, when he knew something was going on, like as he got older and had, just, he was 16, he had some normal aging thing, nothing, anything really bad. But like he would come to me and be like, okay, do it for me. And my corgi before him, he had a lot of issues going on. And so I would do a lot with oils and different things with him. And while Gus did not love the oils, oftentimes he would come and lay in front of me after I would get done, doing some healing work and using the oils on Newton, because it's like he didn't want to miss out. on that.
Yeah.
So, he got that it was good for him, but he didn't always, love that. And it was just really interesting, to see how a dog that really didn't love oils responded to them, especially when he needed them. And when he would tell me that, oh yeah, I need those, mom, and I mean, he still would get some every day, and he would allow me to put the oils on reluctantly. He was one of those dogs that always was such a pleaser. And so I was always really respectful, very little, very light, back further on him. Yeah.
Yes, just a little. I love what you already mentioned, like how, like, I know how dogs can learn from other dogs. So
Mhm.
if your dog saw one have a good experience,
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you a million stories with my dogs, with them doing things after the other did it. Really, really, really awesome stuff. You know, I'm glad that we've gotten this opportunity to talk about it, and I do think that it wouldn't be hard for us to go on and on. And
I
it's
know.
I do. I think that it's amazing. And I had somebody. I'm trying to remember who it was, because I just talked to so many people lately, and it's always kind of been like busy, right, and on the fly. But somebody was telling me about putting all these oils on the dog's pad and behind their ears, and I right away I'm wondering, was it an overload, right? Like, so I love the just a little, like when you said crack the lid, I'm like, are you kidding? That's so what it is, like how sensitive. I could sit here and open something, and I know that at some point my dog's way across the room. Guaranteed, if it was meat, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they, even
Yeah.
without me making a sound, I know that they would come. Like, their smell is so amazing. And like you say, we can create these good memories and good feelings and good energy.
And I think too often, what we see, and when I talked about cracking the oil, that's probably not how you're always going to use it. But if we start out slow, if we go easy, if we create that good connection, if we create a good experience for them, now they're going to recognize that the essential oils can provide help with them, that what you do provides help with them, that doing a healing touch for animal session provides help for them. Now they're going to want more of that because they're going to feel better. They're going to feel more relaxed. They're going to calm down. They're not going to have that autonomic nervous system, like you talked about before, where they're in that stress overload. They're in that sympathetic overload in their, autonomic nervous system. And we can help bring that back into balance for them. And that's where they want to be.
I think they're looking for it. I think that's what,
And
that homeostasis and is what we are all looking for. And dogs look to us for that.
And I think our dogs recognize it when it happens so much quicker than we do. I mean, their innate intelligence, their innate instinct about these things are usually really amazing, to work with. And most of my clients these days, I don't even see them. I work on them from a distance, and still have the same sort of results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once they get a few good, once you get that a good experience, you can, like you say, from the smell, they can just instantly be back into that good feeling and good experience and safety and joy, whatever it is that they're getting from it, can just be triggered by it. And we know this. How many of us know this? I do. We do, I'm trying to think of what pancakes, syrups brings me back to a kid, and there's all different things that just bring you right back to the memories.
Exactly.
But yet we can create new ones for dogs with these great scents and these experiences. It's so awesome. I'm going to put show your website here. I can't wait to share this. I can't wait to share more about it. You have at least a couple freebies there you mentioned, ebooks.
I do. So if you just pop on there and across the top, it'll say downloads. If you click on or free downloads, I think it says, or you can do /downloads. And you go, I have 3 ebooks on my website, and you can get all 3 of them, or you can choose to, do one at a time. But I have one called, they're all my lucrative living ebooks. So they're about 20 pages. And there's a great one for animals, and mostly toward indoor animals, animals that are in the house with us. But the things that we can do, just the little, there's some essential oil information, but just the little things we can do, and thinking about how and what we're doing to feed them and help them create purpose, and keeping them active, because I think that's such a huge problem for so many of our animals, that we see they're not active enough. They're eating biologically inappropriate diets, and then what are they? They're heavy, they're full of inflammation, they're unhappy. And that shows up in lots of ways, including in behavior. So, we want to make sure that we're doing the little things, and it doesn't have to be, where you're going to overhaul your whole household. But, one of the things that for animals that is so important, and this is part of the reason I love essential oils, is that when we switch our cleaning products over to natural products like essential oils and baking soda and vinegar and things like that, plant-based cleaners versus chemically synthetic cleaners, which are horrible for us and for our animals, so bad for our animals. It falls to the floor when it's in the, all of these like synthetic scent things, the plug-in things and stuff that are there, that it's heavier than our air, and it comes down and it sits right off of our floor. And guess who's there?
Right at their level.
Our dogs. And they're taking that all in. And I really believe it's why we're seeing higher rates of seizures and cancer. And, our dogs' longevity is going down, not up. Our dogs used to live longer than they do now. Now you talk to people and, oh my gosh, I've got a 12-year-old. That's pretty old. That used to be more middle age for our animals. And, that I lost a dog at 16, people think that that's pretty old. But I mean, I believe that there was a time when, he could have lived longer than that. If there wouldn't have been things in the way, if we wouldn't have been using things that were detrimental to him. And so I love the whole concept that we have to, if you can't do it for yourself, and I hope you can do it for yourself, by the way. I'm a big advocate of that these days. I never used to be, but now I am. But, we do it for your animals, and it's going to help you too. But, using some lemon oil and some white vinegar and baking soda, there's not too much in your house you can't clean with that.
Oh, it's true, right? The chemicals, all sorts of things. Even like we said, this, the mosquito killer and the lawn stuff. I've.
Oh yeah.
People, I'm like, you're putting that stuff on your ground. Have you thought about your dog? Like, and it's just because of lack of knowledge. It's not usually,
no one's doing it to hurt their animals.
Yeah. And I like to believe that. I'm willing to believe that. And that's the way I like to think.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine, like, you don't want to purposely hurt anything. But these oils are really, I can't wait I'm going to share this and to get this out there and to get people checking it out. I thank you so much.
And please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about oils, about any of the stuff that we talked about today. As you can see, I love to talk about it.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I'm so excited that we did this. I'm going to end this, but we're going to keep talking for a minute. Please check it out, KateBrownHealingsEssentials.com. I went to her site. I just love it. There's some ebooks, some information. I mean, we just can never learn enough about this stuff for our dogs and for our own lives. So I really, really appreciate it, Kate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.